Welcome back. The primaries in the state of Connecticut are tomorrow. One of the most closely watched races is the showdown between Linda McMahon, the former CEO of the WWE, and former Representative Chris Shays. They will duke it out tomorrow to see who will be the Republican nominee in the race to replace retiring Senator Joe Lieberman in the U.S. Senate. We spoke with Chris Shays earlier today. All right, let's start this way. You have a huge primary tomorrow.
Huge.
Huge. But let's put that on the table for just 1 second.
Sure.
Let's go to the top of your ticket, that is Mitt Romney and his selection of Paul Ryan as his running mate. And the question is simple. Do you see Ryan as a net gain for Mr. Romney, or for a moderate like yourself, are you concerned that there may be problems down the road with this ticket?
He's a net gain for the country. This is a thoughtful young man who I served with on the Budget Committee. He came forward with a budget. The Senate hasn't passed a budget in over 2,100 days. So he comes out with a budget. His budget is criticized. Well, what's the budget that the Democratic majority in the Senate are offering? Nothing.
But his budget is radical.
His budget isn't radical. It's trying to get our country's financial house in order and our nation back on track. It's not radical. Good grief, what's radical is tolerating trillion-dollar deficits. The last 4 years, I haven't been in Congress the last 4 years. What's radical and outrageous is trillion-dollar deficit, trillion-dollar deficit, trillion-dollar deficit, trillion-dollar deficit, and the Senate has no budget to bring out?
Okay, but Congressman Shays, what about, let's talk about voters in the critical, important state of Florida. And you almost know the question before I ask it to you.
I don't want to talk about Florida. I want to talk about Connecticut.
Okay, we'll talk about Connecticut in just 1 second. But you know that seniors in particular in that critical state are going to find Mr. Ryan's proposals to radically overhaul Medicare as a bitter pill to swallow.
Well, let's think about that. So he doesn't impact anyone 55 years or older. So what he's trying to do is help make sure that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are there for our children. When I go and talk to seniors, and they say, what are you going to do for me? I say, you know what I'm going to do for you? I'm going to make sure that your children and your children's children have the same opportunities you've had.
Okay. You want to talk Connecticut, and I can't blame you. For the viewers in the great state of Connecticut that are watching us tonight, you have a huge primary tomorrow against Linda McMahon, in which, no offense, as you already know, you're badly trailing in the polls.
Well, you know what? Badly trailing 2 weeks ago. I think her support is paper thin but broad, and mine is not as broad but much stronger. This is a primary in August, and you know, I've spent $1.5 million, and she spent $65 million. $65 million. She spent more in the state of Connecticut.
Wait a minute. Congressman Shays, did you just say you spent $1.5 million and she spent $65 million?
Yeah, and in the last 3 years to become a senator, she spent $65 million. She spent $15 million in the last few months. And so, you know what? She's doing better with the public opinion poll, but she's not going to win this primary if my voters get out and vote. And you know what? If I win, I won't be surprised. Everyone else will, but not me. If I lose, I won't be surprised. It's who comes out to vote. And I'm telling my voters in Connecticut that they have a chance to make history. They can show that when they say there's too much money in politics and they want Congress to do something about it, write a law or something, just do it. Reject the person who's spending so much money.
As a matter of fact, the New York Times just today said that this is a race between experience and money. So why is money winning?
Because it's $65 million of money, and I'm not sure it's winning. I think it's losing. My opponent is basically thinking that she's already in the World Series, and she hasn't won the pennant yet.
Interesting analogy here. I want to go back to a quote that you made, Congressman Shays, about a month ago, in which you said in this bitter race that in your long public career, going back to the state Senate, and here's the quote, "I have never run against an opponent that I have respected less, ever. And there are a lot of candidates I have run against." Why would you say something like that?
Well, it's a very accurate quote, because she disrespects the democratic process. This is a process where you engage people, you listen, you learn, you help, you lead, and then you listen again. Democracy is sacred, in my judgment, and she doesn't respect it. She really thinks she can buy the election, and she's so arrogant about it that she thinks she doesn't have to talk to the press, doesn't have to talk to editorial boards, doesn't have to have debates. And so it's an honest statement. I don't respect that. Even when I was in running against a candidate who wasn't well known, I made sure we had 4 to 6 to 8 debates, because that's the process you should respect. So yes, I mean, I don't have a lot of respect for her. She may win. If she wins and I lose, I vote for her, because that's the way the process works. She's my only choice.
Okay. You know what's interesting, Congressman? I woke up early this morning and I saw on television a commercial for Linda McMahon. And I want you to take a look at it.
Oh, please, don't make me look at it.
And then I want you to give me your reaction. Let's go ahead and take a look at this commercial.
Connecticut's jobless rate just jumped sharply. Who's best for jobs? Linda McMahon is a job creator. Chris Murphy is a career politician. McMahon created hundreds of good Connecticut jobs. Murphy has never created a single job. McMahon has a detailed jobs plan with middle-class tax cuts. Murphy says his jobs plan is still a, quote, work in progress. Murphy's been in office 13 years and his jobs plan isn't ready?
I'm Linda McMahon, and I approve this message.
Now, to the average person watching that spot, they may not notice this, but I almost stood up in bed this morning because, and here's why, the voters haven't spoken yet. There is still a primary between you and Linda McMahon, and she is already looking ahead. You used the word arrogant. Is that earlier? Is that commercial, in your opinion, arrogant?
Well, if the Yankees were trying to win the World Series, but they hadn't yet won the pennant, and they focused on the World Series, they're not going to do too well. And she's focused on the wrong race. You know what? Chris Murphy hasn't created jobs. Linda McMahon has created a few jobs, some in Connecticut and a lot in China. When I helped balance the budget for 4 years, passed welfare reform, but when we balanced the budget for 4 years, we created the opportunity for businesses to create about 8 million new jobs in the private sector. So you know what? We have a race tomorrow. I think I win. And if I win, I think I beat Chris Murphy.
Do you regret not running any negative ads against Linda McMahon?
I've never, ever run a negative ad, ever. Now, I've been willing to confront someone in a debate where they can respond. You said Linda McMahon is a job creator? Yes. Hugh Hefner is a job creator.
Why are you making the comparison between those two?
What's the difference?
What's the difference between Linda McMahon and Hugh Hefner?
Yeah, I mean, she's made her money in ways that, frankly, are in the gutter. You know, so what's the difference?
Wow. Why don't the voters of Connecticut, and maybe they'll see it your way ultimately tomorrow, but as of the polling, the voters of Connecticut don't see it that way.
Well, you know what? We'll see tomorrow, won't we?
We will. Now, you have accused McMahon of being neither a social conservative nor a fiscal conservative. So what are you saying, Congressman?
Well, $65 million, someone who spends that amount of money so wastefully, there's no way they're a fiscal conservative. No way. I mean, even when Ross Perot was running for president, he said he'd spend 50 and he spent 35 because he didn't want to part with 15 million. And she's certainly not a social conservative, being in the business she's in. I mean, there's no way you could be in the business that she's in and be a social conservative.
Why not?
Watch it sometime.
I have. That's why I'm asking the question.
So you take her husband, comes down, pulls down his pants in front of 16,000 people, and TV audience, makes someone kiss his rear end, forces her husband, basically forces a woman to strip down to her underwear, get on her hands and knees and bark like a dog. I mean, you know, there's nothing social conservative about that.
I guess I haven't seen that part of the WWF.
Well, you missed it. That's the way it was when she ran the business.
She claims, and we're wrapping up here, Congressman Shays, what's the bottom line on this race? She claims that she's created a lot of jobs, contributed greatly to the tax base of Connecticut, that she's learned from her mistakes in the past, having a home, I believe, foreclosed on early on in her years, and has been forced to learn how to be a businesswoman, a successful one at that.
Yeah, she said she's lived the American dream. You know what we all have? I bet you never expected when you were growing up to have the job you had.
Never in a million years.
You know, school teacher, someone who's a school teacher, that may have been her American dream. You know, so it's not that everybody wants to make $1 billion. People want to make a contribution. So what have I done? My American dream was to be of service, to listen and to learn and to help and to lead and then listen again. That was my American dream. And I haven't been in politics for 4 years, and I'm coming back because I want to take the experience, the knowledge that I have, and put it to work.
The general election, do you think that if Linda McMahon wins this race, that she is the next senator from the great state of Connecticut, or does it go to the Democrat?
Honest answer?
Honest answer.
I think she loses big.
So normally we don't hear Republicans say that the Republican nominee, Brad, is ultimately going to lose.
Wow, wow. What's that, the Reagan Amendment? I mean, what, you don't, look, this guy, Shays, I'm sorry. I mean, he's a career politician. He should know better than to just keep droning on and on and on about how bad his opponent is without being able to come up with any of thoughtful ideas on what he would do and what he's all about and why he's the best person, no matter who his opponent
But
is.
maybe if you had 65 million directed at you, you would feel the same way.
You can't whine. Whining does not win races.
And politically, it's never a good idea for a male candidate to be aggressively attacking a female. You know, you saw it even with Rick Lazio and Hillary Clinton in 2000.
That's right.
It's happened
Sign
many
this, sign
times.
this.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to go down that road. You have to, you know, use velvet gloves there, and he just...
Okay, well, Frank, before we take this break, do you give Chris Shays any chance at all tomorrow against Linda McMahon?
I don't. I do like what he said, though, about Hugh Hefner being a job creator. I think Hugh Hefner would be a great candidate for U.S. Senate. That's a campaign I'd volunteer on.